My name is Andranik Eskandarian, and you are listening to Team Melli Talk.
Salam, khosh amadi. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Team Melli Talk. I'm your host, Omid Nazari. It's great to have you with us. And for this edition of Team Melli Talk, I'm really excited to be on the phone with Omid Nazari, a one-time member of Team Melli, the national team of Iran. Hopefully, we would like to see him back again. He's currently playing his club football in the Philippines. Omid, welcome to Team Melli Talk. It's really great to have you with us. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. I really appreciate it. I'm good.
Okay, Omid, before we start getting into the questions I've been wanting to ask you, there's some things I like to know about, your knowledge of Farsi. I remember seeing some of your interviews. How is your Farsi? Do you speak it very well? Did you pick a lot of it up, growing up from your father?
The thing is, my father has always talked Farsi to me, but so I understand everything. But about talking, it's like more difficult. But I might manage myself. If I have to, I'll talk. So that's it. Yeah.
I'm sure you know some Tagalog as well. We'll get back to some of the questions about your experiences of living in Sweden, of course, even living in the Philippines as well. So as we get started, what I want to know, Omid, is which team did you first start supporting when you were younger? Was it a team from the top level of Swedish football, or was it maybe a popular football club from places like England, Germany, or maybe even Spain?
Yeah, it was Liverpool, actually. Liverpool, because my father was always supporting them, so I just followed with him. But back home, I was playing in Malmö, which is a big club in Sweden, so I support them too, of course.
Yeah, I saw one of the first clubs you were involved in Sweden was Malmö, and excuse me if I don't pronounce it correctly. And, while we're on the topic of Liverpool, who was one of your favorite players for Liverpool when you were growing up? Did you have a favorite player, or did you just like supporting the team?
I've always liked Steven Gerrard, so yeah, that's the player.
All right, Steven Gerrard, very, very familiar name. Anytime you talk to someone who's a fan of Liverpool, that's one of the first names you hear. And what about players from maybe the Swedish national team? And I understand, I believe you were born in the early 90s, so is it possible that maybe Henrik Larsson might have been one of your favorite players when you were growing up?
Maybe not my favorite player, but he's a big player. Everybody knows him in Sweden. So, yeah, he's a big player. He had a nice career. But he's always been Zlatan, so he's from the same city, and I've seen him since I was a kid. So, yeah.
Of course, that actually should have come to my mind first. Maybe I was going a little bit further back, because I remember seeing Henrik Larsson playing for Sweden in the 1994 World Cup. But when it comes to Zlatan Ibrahimovic, you said you saw him since you were a kid. Was there ever a time when you got to meet him and maybe even get his autograph?
Yeah. When I was a kid, like 10 years old, he was just living the other street, so you could just walk over, and sometimes when he was down, you can just talk to him. But yeah, that was back then.
That's awesome. Of course, Ibrahimovic is such a legend. I believe they even put a word in the dictionary. I believe it's called being Zlatan or something. It's really awesome to hear. And, next, Omid, what I want to know is, when did you first start becoming a supporter of Team Melli, the national team of Iran? You mentioned your dad earlier with Liverpool. Was it your father as well who got you to start watching Team Melli with him, maybe like World Cup qualifying matches?
Yeah, since I was a kid, we've always followed Team Melli. My father followed him because he's from there, of course. So it becomes a thing to also follow them. So yeah, since I was a kid, we've always followed them.
Okay, awesome to hear. It's great that seems like you have a lot of things in common with your father and with football. And what about Iran now? Where is your dad from in Iran? I'm guessing maybe he's from Tehran. Seems like when I talk to everyone from Iran, whenever I talk to someone who has relatives from Iran, they always say their family's from Tehran. But did you ever visit Iran when you were younger, like maybe when you were a teenager?
Yeah, I did actually 3 times, I think, 3 or 4 times. My father is born in Tehran, but grew up in Abadan. So yeah, and yeah, that's it. He grew up in Abadan.
And now when on the topic of Iran and Team Melli, I'm gonna go much forward into your career now. And as I remember, Team Melli had contacted you when you were playing for Angelholms in the Super Etan. So how well was Angelholms playing at the time that Carlos Queiroz contacted you?
Yeah, he actually visited us. He came home to us in Sweden for me and my brother, actually. And back then, the year before, we were actually almost going up to the first division in Sweden. So we were okay. I just transferred from Malmo to Ängelholm back then when he came to visit.
What was that feeling like for you? You mentioned earlier how you were watching Team Melli when you were younger with your father as well as with your brother, and then there you were, in practice, and Carlos Queiroz shows up to see you and your brother. I mean, what was going through your head at that time?
Of course, it's really big. It's really big. It's a very nice feeling because Iran is one of my countries. My father is from there, and I have relatives there. So it was a special moment to get invited and to play for one of your countries. I see myself as Swedish, Iranian, and Filipino, but it was really big, and I'm happy for the moment I experienced with the team every time I was there.
Well, the next thing I want to mention, I remember that you were with Team Melli during that huge World Cup qualifier against South Korea in Tehran. That was in October 2012. What was that experience like for you at Azadi Stadium?
That was crazy with 100,000 watching the game in the stadium. I've never experienced that before. I've never done that, so it was a special moment. And the win that we had, it was a good night. So I will always remember that night.
I remember that Masoud Shojai during that game was given a second yellow card, and of course was red carded. And Team Melli had to play the last 30 minutes of the match with 10 men. At that moment, were you a little nervous? Were other players on the bench really worried at that time, or was it a situation where everyone decided to just be strong and say that there was plenty of time and being down one man really isn't that big of a deal?
Of course, we all were nervous. It was a tight game. It was, and one man down against South Korea. It's hard. South Korea was a good opponent back then. But we kept it together, and yeah, we managed to win as a team.
I still remember that game very clearly, as do many other Team Melli fans. It was a great moment to see all the players celebrating. And of course, any victory against South Korea is a good victory for Iranian football fans. And, Omid, another question I want to ask you is, from the time you spent with Team Melli, which player or players did you spend the most time with? I mean, was there a certain player that became a good friend of yours whenever you were called up to Team Melli?
Yeah, of course you bond with some players, and in my case, I was often hanging out with Puladi, with Hadi Ageli, and sometimes with Ashkan because he's always also European. So yeah.
And what I want to know is, when you first got there, was there ever a feeling where maybe you thought it would be kind of an intimidating experience because you were not born in Iran, maybe you had not spent a lot of time there?
Yeah, of course it would be different for me because I'm not born there, and I don't really speak that good Farsi as the other ones, but I was like welcome so good. Everyone took care of me, and like I said, I was hanging out a lot with Adi Abili, and he really took care of me. So yeah, it was easy to come into the group.
Yeah, it's really great to hear. We always want to hear about the hospitality, and for us, Iranians, we know the hospitality is part of our culture. Okay, Omid, now I'm going to move forward a little bit. And as I see, the last team you played for in Sweden was FC Rosengard. I think that was in 2015. And after that, you had a good season with FC Global, I believe, last year. And, when it comes to football, especially talking about Asian football, the Philippines is a country that a lot of us don't really think of very much when it comes to football. So how has this experience been for you so far?
Yeah, like you said, my last team in Sweden was FC Rosengard, which is a lower team. But the thing was, I got an ACL injury. I tore my ACL back in 2013 or 14 when I was still playing in Ängelholm, and I had a hard time coming back from it. So I got a little bit tired of football, to be honest. I just wanted to move back home to my city. That's why I moved back. And in the middle of that season, Global contacted me. And I was like, yeah, well, that would be a nice experience for me to get to know the culture of my mom's country also. And maybe to bounce back, because football in Asia is growing a lot, and so that's the story why I ended up in Global. And the experience here, it's been good. I like the life, and of course football is still growing here. It is, but for example, now in January, my old team Global, they qualified for Champions League here in Asia, which is a big moment for Philippine football. They didn't manage to go through, but still, it's a big step for qualifying to Champions League, and it's growing. And I hope in some years it will be even bigger.
One thing I could say is that as long as you're playing in the Philippines, I'll be making sure to keep track of how things are going there for you. And, my next question might be a little bit off topic from football. And, so far during your time in the Philippines, how is it going for you? Do you miss home? Do you miss Sweden? Do you also miss eating those Swedish meatballs?
Yeah, of course. I miss my family, my friends. But, for example, last year, they gave me a lot of time off. So I was in Sweden every second month. I was visiting my friends and family back home in Sweden. So it was okay. I was still home. But sometimes it can get lonely because, I'm single. So, yeah.
I understand that. And, Omid, there's times when I have seen your Instagram, and, like you said, you may be single, it could get lonely sometimes, but it seems like you're having a good time over there. Omid, my next question for you. I remember it was only a couple years ago where Iran played Sweden in a friendly match. And, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I do this a lot to my guests on my show when I have these tough questions. So what I want to know is, who were you cheering for, or were you actually hoping for a draw?
Yeah, I saw that game actually, and it was a nice game to watch. And to be honest, I was cheering a little bit more for Iran that game because I represented them. I chose to represent them, so I know the guys from there. Even though I know some guys from Sweden too, but it's another thing when you play there, I think.
Awesome. Like I said, I had no choice, but I had to ask that question. And, we're getting a little closer to wrapping this up. Thank you for being with us, Omid. But a couple more questions, and I'll let you be going soon. And one thing I want to tell you is, what can I say? When I get bored at times, I do a lot of reading on Wikipedia, and some of the information we get on the internet can be wrong. And some Iranian football fans want to know if, whether or not there's that possibility that you might play for the Philippines national team. We've heard rumors about it. What I want to know is there any truth to that?
Yeah, there have been rumors about it. The thing is, Philippines actually want me to play for them to try to transfer me to Philippines, but when you already played for another national team, you can't really change. And I think even Philippines asked the FIFA and the Federation of Iran if I can change, but they got a no. So no, it will not happen. It will not happen that I will play for Philippines.
Omid, so far, I've learned a lot about you and your time playing in Sweden, and here you are in the Philippines. And what I want to know is it possible that maybe one day we might hear about you playing in the Iranian Premier League?
To be honest, now recently, because I was actually supposed to play in Malaysia this year, so I already signed in December and everything, and tried that out, but some things happened, so I moved back to Philippines. But after that experience, I was like, yeah, you should just take the chance and do it. So if I get, because back then in 2012 when I was in Team Melli, I was actually close to sign for first place or close, but I got an offer, but turned it down, and now after been living here in Philippines, I've been trying out new things. So if the possibility comes, then why not? I will absolutely think about it.
Okay, we're almost ready to wrap this up, Omid. And what I want to know is, we've heard how, you've had some injuries. There's been some unfortunate events here and there, but you're still doing your thing. You're playing hard. I'm glad to hear that you're doing a good job. Do you still have that hope to one day put on the shirt again for the national team of Iran?
To be honest, I don't really think about it anymore that much. For me, it's been because I had some rough times, it's I just focus on now, and then whatever happens. But of course, if one day I get called up, it will be I will be so happy. I will be so proud again, to be called up for Iran. So for me, it's more like a bonus if I get called up. I just try to do my best and try to play good for my team, and then whatever happens. But I would be proud to wear the shirt again, yeah.
Omid, I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to join me on Team Melli Talk. It was really a pleasure to have you. It's great to chat with you and hear about your career of playing football. And I just want you to know that wherever you're playing, I'll be keeping track of what you're doing and seeing how many goals you score. And once again, thank you for joining us. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to chat with you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you ever so much. I really appreciate it. And that's a little bit about me.
All right, everybody, thank you again for joining us for this special edition of Team Melli Talk. Make sure you are showing us some support on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You know the handle, @Team Melli Talk. Make sure you are visiting our website, www.teammelitalk.com. If you want to get all the latest updates on the national team of Iran, remember the next World Cup qualifier will be taking place on June the 12th against Uzbekistan in Tehran at the Azadi Stadium. That's it for this edition of Team Melli Talk. Thank you for joining us. Khodafis.